also doesn't say, okay.
And I think there we're live now. Yes, there we are. All three of us live on YouTube on our live stream. So I would like to welcome Kostyantin. And I would like to welcome Stacy. And we're going to be talking to you today about the culture within the Netherlands. So culture in the Netherlands can be a very broad term. So we're going to zoom in on a few things that are practical to you. So what are the valuable things you can know about the culture in the Netherlands? We'll do a little bit of a dive into history, but just 1 or 2 slides just to talk about where does some of the Dutch cultural quirks and really weird stuff come from. Now, having been born and raised in Africa, when I came to the Netherlands, I also stumbled across these things. So let's go through a few things. We'll also introduce our speakers in a second. But without further ado, let's get cracking on where our practical value session starts today. So over to the video element. So if all's good and well, everybody should be able to see that video bit right now. Now, that also means you can zoom in. No, you don't have to. The Zoom works. There we are. So evaluating a country. So when you're coming to a country as a refugee or somebody that's been displaced, what are the things that you might want to consider? So one of the things we would like you to point your attention to is to think about the following 4 aspects. Firstly, you need a roof over your head. So housing, rental, purchase, government provided, social housing. These are all kinds of things we will discuss next week, Tuesday. So if you're seeing this as a recording, please look around on the YouTube link. You'll see some other places where we've discussed other topics as well. Another thing is, once you have a roof over your head, you need to be able to get food in your belly. And that usually means you need to get money from somewhere. Now, there'll be government subsidies, there'll be government grants, but there'll also be ways to generate an income, either as an independent contractor or working for someone or looking for a job. We'll also be posting videos on that. So again, look at the YouTube channel, you'll find some more information there. Then when it comes to culture, which is what we're going to be talking about today, what are the quirks and the differences and the weird stuff that we see in cultures, and how does that differ from ours? And how does that help us to figure out how to behave? And then the 4th element, coping. So when you go to a new country, it's not just about the culture, but you also need to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Simple things like going to the doctor, or I might have gone through a traumatic experience. Where can I knock on the door where I can get some help? So Coaches4Ukraine, and that's where I'm going to go next, is an organization that we started to help people that are struggling. A lot of organizations will help you with finding a house, finding income, finding not just a place to stay, but also settling in. But when it comes to settling into your job, settling into a specific community, or getting to grips with a new life, or on the other hand, dealing with trauma, those are areas that are more difficult to get help for. So what we've done is we've reached out to coaches from all around the world, and we have access to over 1,500 psychologists that can help you today if you need help. But to make sure that with more general practical stuff you get help as well, we're organizing sessions like this today. So to join us, go to the Facebook group, which is called Coaches4 Ukraine, and join the group and follow the discussions and the sessions that are coming up. So past sessions that we've already had are listed at Exponential Leadership, which is the YouTube channel. And there you will find things like job seekers. What can they do if they use LinkedIn? Because the majority of Western Europe uses LinkedIn to find jobs. Anyway, that's that. But for now, let's meet our panelists for today. Now, my name is Exton de Waal, and we also have 2 other panelists today. And so they are Kostya. Kostya, can you introduce yourself a little bit to everybody in the audience?
Thank you, Extin. Yes, hi, my name is Konstantin, or a short name Kostya. I'm from Ukraine, from Odessa, and I've been living and working abroad for the past 16 years now, and 5 years, wonderful years, I've spent in the Netherlands between 2013 and 2017. Really like the country, people, have lots of friends, enjoyed being there, and very happy to be here today to help our Ukrainian people. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Kosti. And over to you, Stacey. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having us here. My name is Stacy. I'm a Korean expat coach, and I help people to integrate quickly into other cultures, into different countries. And I originally coming from Kiev, it's the capital of Ukraine. And I moved to the Netherlands more than 10 years ago. So I went through this immigration life, and I faced a lot of things that surprised me and amazed me. And I've done a lot of learning during the past 10 years. So I would like to help people who are coming to the Netherlands to get more familiar with the Dutch culture. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stacey. And then it's me, the chubby guy from Amsterdam, and I'm sitting here in my little home studio. And so if you're ever in Amsterdam, come and wave at me. You can see me through the window, or just come and have a talk. I'm always willing to help and always willing to reach out. And at the end of the session today, we'll also give you a QR code, which you can use to link to all three of our LinkedIn profiles. So you could also have a chat with us if you need us. And we can also refer you to people that may be able to help you. So let's get back to what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to do a quick and short introduction on the Netherlands. And then after that, we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion, because we've all run into all different kinds of things. Stacey in her way, Kosti in his way, and me in my own way, being an immigrant myself. So without further ado, let's get on with the presentation. So the Netherlands and culture. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question. In the chat, just put in there, what do you think is your answer to the following question? The kingdom or the country of the Netherlands? Is it a kingdom or is it a country? Now, post your questions in the meantime. Kosti will keep an eye on that for us. And I'm going to go on with the next part, and then we'll circle back to that. So firstly, let's look at religions, for instance. What is the difference between with Ukraine and with the Netherlands? Now, about 38% of people in the Netherlands, or 6.5 million, identify as Christian. In Ukraine, that is 35 million, or 87%. Now, this is according to Wikipedia. You being from Ukraine, you might have a different feeling about this, but this is the numbers I had access to. What we also have in the Netherlands is a large Muslim community. That's about 5% of the community of the Netherlands citizens are Muslim. So that's almost 1 million. And then the difference. There's 54% of the Netherlands, about almost 10 million people, that do not belong to any religion or do not identify with any religion. Now, in Ukraine, that is 11%, or almost 4.5 million people. So it gives you an indication as to where certain things might go culturally as well. So let's look at something else called polderen. Now, you're going to hear a lot about this. It's about everybody talking at the same time, talking to each other, and it can be a little bit confusing, but it's core to the Dutch culture. And I'm going to explain to you how polderen came about. But let's look first back at kingdom or country. Kostya, any questions for us on that side or answers?
Yeah, I think some people wrote kingdom here.
All right, so we have a king, so you would expect that it's a kingdom. However, the Kingdom of the Netherlands has multiple countries in it. And some of those countries are not in Europe, but in the Caribbean. But the Netherlands as a country also has communities, or specifically cities or towns, that are part of the Netherlands as a country, also in the Caribbean. Now, one of those is St. Martin. Now, the northern part of St. Martin, the island, is also called St. Martin and belongs to France. The southern part of the island is also called St. Martin and belongs to the Netherlands. And the whole of that island is also called St. Martin. So it must be so nice they named it thrice, right? So that is actually where the country of the Netherlands shares a border with France, not on the European continent, but in the Caribbean. And just as a matter of interest, they pay with dollars, not euros. So let's have a look at Polderen. Now, like most European countries, agrarian societies or farmers were at the core of what happened for most part of the economy. Now, in the Netherlands, at some point, the Friese came around. And because there was lots of waterways in the Netherlands, people were used to traveling by boat, so they started trading. So what is the Netherlands known for today? Still, commerce and agriculture. The Netherlands is the second largest producer of food exports in the world. The biggest food exporter is the United States. So you can imagine what kind of competition that gives you. And then on the agrarian side, exports, but merchants, the Dutch buy and sell anything, all right? So they're always looking for opportunities. And at some point, religion got introduced back from Ireland. This caused a society that was based around religion, looking after the psychology or the emotional side of people, and the agrarian society and the merchants, all living in a nice green country. Only problem is, around about the 11th century, people started getting really fed up with everything getting flooded. And that's where we introduced a fourth element in the Netherlands, dikes. Build a wall, keep out the water, and get some dry land. And that's where a new authority was created in the Netherlands called the Waterschappen, or the Water Authority. So the Netherlands consists of a central government, first and second, or basically this, like similar to the US, we have senators and the House of Representatives. And then we have a second government, which is the local government. And then we have a third government, which is our water board. So those are also elected for. So the Netherlands, because it can be flooded very easily, we have these three governments, and all of them have job opportunities, but at the same time, all of them have different mandates. So if you ever get confused about that, loads of interesting stuff on Wikipedia, you can read about that. But that also means that the Netherlands was created as a country that talks about everything, all right? So even in business, they will ask your opinion. Give your opinion, because there's one thing in the Netherlands you should know, and that is everybody's entitled to their opinion and to yours. All right. So, Kostya, have you run into stuff like that, stuff around that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And thank you, Extin, for starting with this important stuff. It may seem a little bit theoretical or a little bit, something in the past for for people that will watch us or are watching. However, it is extremely important, and it shapes a lot of things happening, and a lot of and it explains a lot of communication things in the Netherlands. So I'm really glad that you mentioned it, and indeed I have seen it many times, how it affects everyday life, and I've been explaining this to other people, not in the Netherlands, that this is the situation, and it's very good, actually. It's very good, and we'll see later why. Thanks.
Stacey, how have you seen poldering popping up in the Netherlands for you?
Yeah, I think it's a core when you describe the Dutch culture, the poldering. It's the understanding, like the value of input of everybody, of each individual. So that like if you build a dike and you don't agree that everyone builds equally strong part of dike, then everyone will be flat. Like it doesn't matter. So if everyone does exactly what the society needs and you agree about it, and you're sometimes not capable to achieve something or to do something, and then you openly discuss it. You say, hey guys, I understand it, but, and then you list the problems and everyone discusses it. And you can see it today when a group starts working together, everyone speaks up, everyone has an opinion. So it's not a hierarchy, it's a egalitarianism. So everyone is equal, and then based on the input of everyone, the best decision can be made. So it's really a core to the Dutch culture. Yeah, thank you for mentioning it.
I think where it came in for me, thank you for that, Stacey. Where it came in for me was who is right? And then in the Netherlands, no one's right. It's about all of us getting the opportunity to speak and then deciding together what is right. And it also means that the boss is not going to tell you how to do your job. And that's something that's really important to know in the Netherlands. No one is going to tell you how to do your job. The expectation is that you can do your job, and that when you struggle, you will ask. Okay, so just also remember that it has to do with everything. So if you go to a town council, they will expect you to know everything, but you don't. So ask. All right. Never be afraid to ask. It's the way you're going to get to know things in the Netherlands. So one of those things is sometimes people ask about what are all these weird and wonderful differences in the Netherlands. So let me show you something else. So one of those things is things like homosexuality. In Ukraine, I saw on Wikipedia that gay rights was quite well protected. What I didn't see was gay marriage. Now, that's something, for instance, in the Netherlands, we said, well, everybody's equal, so everybody has to have access to the same legal structures, including things such as marriage, and then with that pension and everything else that comes with it. Now, why that's interesting is because for the last 600 years, the Netherlands has been separated from church and state. So the government will make one rule, and the church can make another one, and you can decide if you want to follow both or only the one, but the other one always has to be followed. So you always have to follow the legal aspects of it. That also means that anybody can do any kind of contractual agreement between themselves. And we were saying earlier that agreement is really important in the Netherlands. So when you have a discussion, we come to an agreement, and the word for agreement is also the word for meeting. So if the Dutch get really weird because you're late for a meeting, it's because they consider you to be in breach of contract because you made an agreement to be there on time. So that's why also today we were rushing to make sure that we're on time to start the stream. So something else that's interesting to know. The Netherlands consists of part Protestant, part Catholic. So the Protestants fled the Catholics with the Reformation, so they ended up in the north of the Netherlands. The south tends to be Catholic. So in the south, you have things like Carnival, lovely first part of the year, great parties to go to down in the south. So Limburg, Brabant, the southern provinces are mainly Catholic. North is Protestant. But that also means Protestantism brought something interesting. And that is, you're not supposed to show your wealth, which is another thing in the Netherlands. When it comes to status, nobody talks about money. Nobody talks about all the stuff that they own, and nobody's going to show it off. So the Dutch have a weird little thing. They don't put curtains on the ground floor parts of their apartments. So you can walk past and see somebody walking naked past the window. Don't be afraid. Don't be shocked. It happens. All right. But it's a cultural thing where people can see that you're not showing off your wealth. And so how does that actually relate to Ukrainian culture? Now, if we look at Ukrainian culture versus Dutch culture, here are some interesting stuff. You also see there's links at the bottom of the slide. All these slides will be available for you to download afterwards. There'll be a link in the YouTube comments so you can download all the slides and any documentation we may talk about. Some of the interesting things to note here is the power distance. So how much authority do we put into people in power? In the Netherlands, none. We all talk together to come to a conclusion. In the Ukraine, like in South Africa, you'll have somebody telling you, you will do what as you're told. In the Netherlands, people will ask you why. All right. So it's a bit of a weird one, but you have to get used to that. Then the other one is individualism. the Dutch believe in the power of the individual. But if you have that power distance, that authoritarian side of life, then it's difficult to be an individual. So people tend to be more communal. And so from what we look at the statistics, Ukrainians are more communal than the Dutch are. So I assume families mean something really important in Ukraine. Maybe, Kostya, you and Stacey can talk about that and tell us a little bit more about that aspect of how do you treat your grandmother in the Netherlands versus Ukraine?
Well, I don't have grandmother in the Netherlands, so I don't know that. But maybe I would talk a little bit about the power distance. This is something I experienced a lot, and I had a team in which there were Dutch people, and even though I knew this story about not playing a boss or not giving direct orders, okay, it's not as easy as it seems, just to, because the natural reaction for us, for example, for Ukrainians that are used to this, is to do it. But if we know that this is not going to work, the natural reaction is kind of to mask it, to try to go around it, but still keeping it, keeping your authority. And this doesn't work. This is even worse. I mean, you really need to get this mindset that everyone is equal, and you cannot tell people what to do, and they will ask you and argue with you in a positive way because they want to achieve the results. So I would, sorry, extend that I didn't answer your question about grandmother, but that's what I thought was important to highlight.
No, not a problem at all, Kostya. Stacey, do you have something to add on this?
Yeah, I will reply also for Kostya, because I'm lucky. I have both Ukrainian and Dutch grandparents. Well, Dutch grandparents are not my native grandparents, but it was a very interesting part of my life. My ex-family, my ex-husband had a grandfather and grandmother, and they were 70 years together. So they celebrated their 70 years anniversary. So just because they got married 70 years ago, the entire family of 65 people existed, like lived in the Netherlands. So you can imagine they've got 4 children, and each child had also 4 kids. So they had not 4, but they had 13 grandchildren with their 13 partners. So we were with 26. But when it came to the point when grandparents got sick or got lonely because they grew really old, they turned both more than 90 years old. So when it came to the moment who will visit them, guess who did it? I did. And here's, I think, the big difference is that in Ukraine, your family means really a lot to you. And you take care of your parents, your grandparents, and parents take care of their kids, even when they're 30, when they're 40-year-old, it doesn't matter. So we just stay all together. And I think in the Netherlands, everyone is I won't say wealthy, but the life is so well organized. There is a good social life that you can take care of yourself, no matter if you're 30-year-old or 60 or 90. So then you can be very individualistic. You can create a distance with your family and still take care of yourself. Yeah, but because of my Ukrainian nature and the need of Dutch grandparents to have some company when they were 90, I'm very lucky to have an extra, a bonus a grandfather and grandmother.
Thank you for that, Stacey. Let me get my face back here. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go to the next section, and that is about practical advice. So what I would like each one of you to think about, Kostya and Stacey, is what are the practical things that you would recommend people do? We drew up a little bit of a list. So you each might have your own preference, what part you would like to talk about. Let's have a look at that and start giving your opinion about that.
Stacey,
Who would
sorry,
like to go
I
first?
started first a couple of times, so absolutely, go ahead, start you this time. You're welcome.
Yeah, practical advice. Like everyone who comes to the Netherlands, yeah, first thing I'm talking about is about the Dutch directness. Is this a little bit of advice that you mean, Extine? Yeah, so I think everyone has heard about Dutch directness, and many people are warned, like, hey, be careful, Dutch say what they mean and they mean what they say, and they will tell you whatever is on their mind. So we sort of are prepared for that, but anyways, it every time comes as a shock, as a surprise when you actually experience it. And yeah, I can give an example when two friends of mine and myself, we went to a restaurant, and one friend of mine had a stomach virus. So she didn't eat for 2 days. She was throwing up. She didn't feel well. Anyways, we went for dinner. We got our dinner, and somewhere halfway, a chef came to us and asked, hey, ladies, are you enjoying the evening? How is the dinner? How does it taste? And the healthy ones said, oh, yeah, it's nice. Thank you. We enjoy it. And the one with the virus, she said, it's disgusting. I was like, what? I said, yeah, she's telling the chef who prepared this meal, it's disgusting. You can't eat it. And he says, oh, good that you say it. And what's wrong? Is it like, what's problem? Yeah, the taste is just too present. You can't eat it. Is it too spicy? The chef says. No, it's just, yeah, I feel sick, but actually I feel sick already for 2 days. So it makes me like, not feeling well, but probably it's in me and not in the meal. But anyways, this example shows that Dutch are ready to throw up to you whatever is in their mind, whether it's relevant to the topic or not. So I would just give a practical advice to everyone, maybe even to train in front of the mirror to reply to it, like, oh, really? Or without taking it personal, just like, oh, what do you mean? Or when someone gives you an advice, you should do this and this and this, you say, oh, I will think about it, thank you. And that's it. So if you learn this, you will master the Dutch culture and the Dutch communication.
I think that's a very, very important point, Stacey, is that when you when they give you their opinion, all right, it is an opinion. It is not fact. It's not arguing a point. They're just going to say, this is how I feel about this, all right? And you have to accept that they're allowed to have that opinion. Don't try and convince them that they're wrong. Don't think that they're trying to convince you that you're wrong. They just have a different opinion. So if we separate it into little bubbles, they're in their bubble, you're in your bubble. And as long as those bubbles don't hit each other or hurt each other, everything is fine. And so in the Netherlands, it doesn't matter what you say or do, as long as it doesn't negatively affect other people, people will let you be. They will let you get on with your life. All right. So some other things that might be interesting, households. Okay, things that happen in a household. Stacey, would you like to sort of tell us a little bit more about what you've seen inside households?
Yeah, yeah, it's quite different from Ukrainian culture, I might say. So yeah, for instance, Dutch people, when they wake up, they take a shower. By the way, they take showers in the mornings, and then they dress up, even if they're at home. And I've seen a bit elder people like putting on like really dresses and nice jackets and even shoes with the heels. I can't imagine myself ever wearing heels in my own house. But yeah, that's what a lot of Dutch people do. And yeah, they're very, very practical. And there are maybe legends about Dutch people how saving their arm. So they might not use a lot of water, and if they shower really quickly. For instance, yeah, people from my family, they can take a shower for half an hour. And here it's like 5 minutes, and they would switch off water while they're just not needing it. And the temperature in the house would be really low. I think about 19 degrees in average in the winter. And usually it's the ground floor where the living room is located, and the bedrooms are on the first and the second floor, and they are not heated. So this is really weird for the cultures. Like, for instance, for Ukrainians, we have really warm temperature inside the houses. And especially in the winter, it can be up to 24, 25 degrees. So for Ukrainians, if you don't wear a t-shirt in the winter, it's considered to be cold. So if you have to put a vest, like, it's not, it's a hostile temperature, it's hostile atmosphere in the house. What I also found very interesting is that, if you're, for instance, offered a coffee or tea, you always get one biscuit or one bonbon. So it's again different from Ukraine. In Ukraine, it's a food culture. When you visit someone, Ukrainians will put everything they have on the table. So you will get a full basket of chocolates, a full basket of biscuits and cakes, etc. And here you will get just one piece. And this is how all the kids are being taught from the beginning. So just one at a time. Be modest, be humble. Maybe Kostya can add something else, or extend while I'm thinking of more examples. Thank you.
As you were describing this, it was like a throwback to my life in the Netherlands, absolutely. And a few things that I would like to integrate here. Temperature. Keeping low temperature in the house is also goes with taking easy temperature outside. Of course, it's cool out there in the Netherlands. It's comparable to the northern Ukraine, cooler than southern Ukraine from where I come from. It's also windy. So Dutch people from the very small age, they tend to wear, lightly, and they get used to it, and so they are very, if I may, temperature resistant, and this is good for health. At the end of the day, it's good for health. And especially somewhat shocking for our moms can be how Dutch moms wear their kids. I still remember my wife was shocked, and because kids wear even lighter than adults, and again, this helps their immunity. Although you see these kids and they have a little bit blocked nose almost all of the time, but it's good for them at the end. So this is something that most Ukrainian displaced people now are moms with kids, so they have to be aware of it. Of course, if your kid is not used to this, it can be dangerous to switch to this immediately, but little by little, something can be tried on. Then few really practical things that come into my mind about household. Okay, segregating garbage is important. Important to do it in your house. Important to put it in the right bins. Is something that is only being developed in Ukraine, so many people don't know it, especially in outside of the cities. Tap water is you can drink tap water, if I'm not wrong, anywhere in the Netherlands, but for sure in most of the places. Food, there are many differences in food, but the main one is perhaps Dutch people eat relatively simple food and mostly cold food. The hot meal is the evening meal. In Ukraine, people try to have hot meals almost all the time, and especially during lunch. Neither is wrong or right. I mean, it's just a matter of habit, and I enjoyed sandwiches and salads during lunch a lot, especially with cheese. It's great. What to say else? Maybe not to go to too many details, but I've seen some great posts on Facebook about this stuff. Some people really put it point by point, and we will share here in the chat these links to this post so people can read more, can comment, can discuss, and learn Dutch culture much better in this way.
Thanks for that, Kosti. So yeah, by the way, the reason why I call him Kosti is we went to university together here in the Netherlands. So it's just a force of habit, but he is Kostiantin. Okay. So a few things. Garbage sorting. Ask your local town council or ask your neighbors, because it differs between different town councils. In Amsterdam, for instance, most things are sorted into everything else, paper and glass. Okay, and everything else goes to a place just outside of Amsterdam, and it's burned in an oven, and whatever is left over is split up, and the metals are taken out and things like that. But part of that burning process is also used for city warmth. So it's fed back into the city to warm households, especially in the winter. So that might be something to be aware of. But as I said, just ask for people around you, they will know. Then when it comes to temperatures, they tend to keep their bedrooms cooler than the rest of the house. And the moment you drop it by 1 degree, so if you go from 24 to 23 degrees, or from 23 to 22 degrees, up to around about 19 degrees, your body warms the house relatively well. If you wear something slightly warmer, so they will rather wear something slightly warmer, but save about probably 30 to 40% of their gas bill by bringing the temperature down a little bit. If you also sleep at about between 17 and 19 degrees, you sleep better. The human body is designed like that, so that when you fall asleep at night, your core temperature needs to drop a little bit to sleep better. So that's also why it's considered good and healthy. So you also see people will switch off the heating at night and then leave the window to the bedroom open. I've got friends that do that. Don't get me started. All right. And then the other thing about being nice and neatly dressed at home, I've got a lot of academic friends. No. All right. They walk around with whatever they've got that has come out of the washing basket that smells clean. All right. Especially my nerdy friends, sort of when you grow up from a student and singles, different household. The moment you've got kids, you've got to set an example, slightly different kind of things. And then something interesting about the words resentment and offense, or respect and things like that, it doesn't really feature in Dutch culture. It is expected that by allowing you to have an opinion, that is showing respect. The fact that your opinion is not validated or said, I agree with you, doesn't mean the respect is not there. You're allowed somebody to have that opinion. So you will see, we also have this with different other cultures. So for instance, when we look at North African cultures or Turkey or Middle Eastern cultures, within the Netherlands, people go like, you don't respect me. And it's not, because we do not allow that. We don't do the validation side. And because you don't do the validation side, people will feel like they're not being validated. Ask. If you're ever in doubt, just ask a Dutch person. They never have a problem giving you another opinion and giving you another point of view. So the other thing I want to tap into specifically has to do with conflict. If you disagree with someone, it's okay. But the moment you get passionate about it, the Dutch will walk away from the conversation. They don't like conflict. They don't mind disagreement as long as it stays polite, and as long as people are expressing their views in a way that doesn't feel aggressive. So, medical system. The medical system in the Netherlands is rather simple. Every single person in the country pays into a medical aid. It doesn't matter if you're unemployed or not, you pay into the medical aid. If you can't afford it, the local town council will pay for it. Now, for displaced people, or specifically when it comes to Ukrainians now, and in general with refugees, there is something called CAK, all right? You can look it up, cak.nl. If your local doctor doesn't know about it, tell them to go to the website. That's an insurance fund the government pays into to pay for medical aid for people that are uninsured. And in this case, the Netherlands have said, we will pay money into that from a governmental perspective, and your local doctor will be able to tap into that to get stuff paid. So that means you don't have to pay a cent, right? That medical aid will pay for you. And the only way to start that process, you have to go to your local doctor, your GP or general practitioner, or the Dutch call them a huisarts. When you go to the huisarts or the GP, they will start the process for you. The Dutch are extremely process driven, right? They like to deviate from them, but they start with the process. So the place the process starts is you have to have a diagnosis. And once you have that diagnosis, your general practitioner will refer you to where you need to go. Be that to a physiotherapist or a specialist or go to a hospital. All of those things start with your local GP. Have to make an appointment. Remember, we said agreements are important. Have to make an appointment. If you can't find an appointment, ask them if they have a walk-in hour. Normally they have that between 8 and 9 in the morning, where anybody can just queue up. But check if they have that. And yeah, medical aid treatment through specialists. And if you get stuck, right, just ask around, because people will be very helpful and tell you where to go. So for instance, if you get stuck on anything concerning cancers, for instance, or immunotherapy or virology or infectious diseases, things like that, drop me a line. I have a few hundred friends in those fields. I can refer you to people that can help you with that and give you direction as to where to go. Right. And I'm sure, Kosti, Stacey, we all have our own networks and we have the availability to help people. And everybody in the Coaches for Ukraine group will also be more than willing to help you. So what is next up on the list for us, Kosti?
The next thing is a practical and pragmatic approach to life. But maybe if you allow me just a quick integration about medical system. I mean, I've lived in Ukraine. I have parents and family and friends in Ukraine, and it's really different. So it takes time and effort to adjust to this system, but I should say that this is a good system. It's mentioned in many sources that Huisart or family doctor is your level where you will end up in 99% of the cases, and they will tell you what to do, and only if there is something really requiring attention of a specialist, you will be referred. But anyone can be sure that once you go to a specialist, you will be helped quickly, effectively, and the system works very well. So it's more of a mental thing to get used to it. Yeah, just felt it's important to underline that. So practical and pragmatic approach.
Before you go on with the practical stuff, of course, I just want to add something to that. But people tend to also not know, from South Africa, I know that general practitioners tend to be people that have done their medical degree and then they've got into practice. In the Netherlands, it doesn't work like that. Your huisarts is a specialization. So they have to study for about 3 years to be able to become a huisarts. So they have a broad knowledge and they can help you with a lot of stuff. One thing they will not give you is antibiotics. Right? You can scream what do you like, they will not give you antibiotics unless they believe it's necessary. And the standard rule is 3 days of an elevated temperature, otherwise you don't get it.
And it goes easily to up to 5 days in many cases. So absolutely correct about antibiotics. Yeah. And also often they are also pediatricians, so they are both for adults and kids, family doctor. No, or am I wrong?
May I add something on this?
Absolutely.
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, Kostya, it's a good remark. Exactly, they are both pediatricians and just huisarts. What I also wanted to mention that don't be surprised that the appointment that you make, you can only make it for 10 minutes. It's never more. So, and this 10 minutes includes everything: introducing yourself, observation, putting diagnosis, prescription, and making the next appointment if needed. So if you have more than one complaint, you can try to book 2 appointments at once. So you have 20 minutes. Otherwise, you have to come back next day. So don't be surprised with that. And there is also working hours. And if you call outside the working hours, again, what Kostya mentioned, they won't come to visit you. They won't give you a lot of information, make an appointment outside the working hours. Yet there is a very good system, procedure. They will have a, you will get connected with a let's say it's called huisarts on duty. So and then they will have a checklist. So they will guide you through the checklist. Do you have a high temperature or not? How are you feeling? Etc. etc. So they will understand are you good enough to wait until the next day and to have an appointment in the working hours, or do you really need to go to the hospital right away? So also don't be afraid that you will be taken through a mile-long checklist while you just feeling not well and you want to have this antibiotic. Yeah, so that was
and thank you, Stacy. And one important stuff, quick one. Emergency how do you call the machine that the machine that arrives, the car that arrives, emergency, no, emergency.
The
ambulance is for really life-threatening situations. That's it. They will never arrive for anything other than that. So forget about ambulance unless there is real danger. Full stop.
I think that's also interesting to note that you can take a taxi to go there, and then you can claim the taxi cost back from your medical aid. Right? Just be aware of that. So you were talking about in the evenings, but it's also in the weekends. So the huisartsenpost, as they call it, or the huisarts on duty, is usually somebody in the rural areas or the smaller villages. It'll be one of the practices that's on duty. In the city, they have a central location where doctors go to be on duty. And that is available in Amsterdam. I think we've got 4, in Rotterdam, I think 5, and they're always available night through. So if at 3 o'clock in the morning you think, oh, I've got heart palpitations, it feels like I'm having a heart attack, or my husband's having a heart attack, or whatever, or my grandfather, my father, call immediately. Just look how far on huisartsenpost. Okay, of course, they'll remind me. We'll put it in the text in the comment below so people will know how to spell that. And when you call this, there's actually a countrywide number you can call as well, and it will direct you to the local one that you need to be to, or look it up on Google and you'll just click on that and call the local one. When you call them, they will triage, as Stacey was saying, they will go through some questions with you to determine if you need to come directly or you can wait till the following morning. But if they think it's really urgent, they will prioritize you so that you're first. So will they give you within 15 minutes or half an hour, usually you can have an appointment and you can go there and they will look at you and go like, no, you need to go to the hospital, and they will call ahead to make sure the hospital's ready for you, or call an ambulance or get your taxi and go, so, and the hospital, there's quite a few hospitals around every city, and even in the rural areas, there are hospitals, really good hospitals, all right? So don't have to worry that you have to go to a specific city to get good treatment. Specialists, like highly qualified specialists, that specialize in something specifically like oncology or cancer, will be attached to university hospitals. And those university hospitals will disseminate the information or spread the information to the local hospitals. So if you're in a local hospital, they may refer you to go to a city, but they will not do that on the same evening. They will treat you and help you right now. You don't have to wait for those kind of things, those emergency healthcare options. But off medicine, Kostya, where were we going?
Okay.
Pragmatic approach, I think, is where you were going.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to the polder model where we started. Please, Extin, if you wanted to start or you want us to comment straight away, let us know.
Well, go ahead with what you have, and then I think Stacey and I can chuck in on that or get in on that. Okay.
So few points from me, if I may, to start with is maybe first one, not showing off with money. Dutch people don't, I don't know, unless they're very, very rich and with their close, small circle of friends, but in normal life, they don't show off with expensive clothes or with buying. I mean, if you go for a birthday, the typical present would be 10, 20 euros. So, right. And it's normal. I mean, when even for kids, I mean, when we go for kids' birthday in Ukraine, basically it's what's your maximum budget that you can afford, and then you try to reach it. Here is very simple, and even in some cases it is advised upfront to parents what kind of presents are expected. So I mean up to between 8 and 10 euros. So God forbid someone gives a present for 30 euro or something like this, and then others will feel offended. So this is very practical, pragmatic approach to life. And I'm not talking about expensive cars here and you know, showing off just to show off. Of course, there are expensive cars. There are very expensive houses in the Netherlands, but this is something that people really can afford, and then they get it. But even then, they don't show off. They don't, and definitely there is no status about that and things like that. A pragmatic and good approach to life. A lot of attention to sports and healthy living. You know, spending time outside. Kids go to do sports. Adults go to do a lot of sports. There are many parks. So yeah, then there is something that is bigger, but it is still related to pragmatic approach. It's long-term planning, lifelong planning. Just an extreme example here. I was living in the Netherlands, and there is in Rotterdam, and there is a big port of Rotterdam, huge port. I think it's the biggest in Europe. So this port has a plan of development for 50 years ahead. So this says it's all. You know, in the Netherlands, people plan really ahead. They like to have good plan for life. Generally speaking, life is quite structured, and you know, of course, there are different people and everyone has its own life, but main phases of life, you know, you're young, you go to school, then you go to college, then if you want and if you can, you go to university. If not an issue. You know, no one says, you didn't go to university, so you are better or worse. No, not at all. Everyone makes its own choice. Then there is a funny part of life, maybe between 20 and 30, where people enjoy life. Then around 30, they start thinking about family. They build families, they start getting kids. Usually they make kids several, one close to another. So, and I think it's a good approach. And then it's about career. It's about, you know, living a good life. So, yeah, Stacy, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, thank you. It was really useful and interesting also to reflect to your experience. And I would like to continue from this about the time planning. Yeah, it's really strict here in the Netherlands. Like in many cultures, it's very flexible, and as well as in Ukraine. So if you like, make sure that if you have an appointment, you also stick to this appointment. And I will show the typical difference. Like here, often, even if you have a call, you don't have a meeting, but you plan a call, you plan a time slot in your agenda, even to call. So then you know this call will start at 3 p.m. and it will finish at 3:30. So you block 30 minutes for that. And same goes for the meetings. And in Ukraine, it's a little different. In Ukraine, if you have a meeting like 2 weeks from now, you say, okay, we will meet on Sunday, somewhere on Sunday, but we will call each other on Saturday or Sunday morning. So this meeting, it's not strict. It can be changed under the circumstances. And this is really different. And as Christine mentioned at the beginning, agreement. So people take it seriously. So make appointments for everything and stick to this appointment, even if it's your friend. So just to give an example, if you're in an area where you have your good friend living and you think, oh, it's nice, I can just come along, and you ring the bell. And even if your friend sees you through the window, he or she might not open the door because you didn't make an appointment. And it's like really no offenses, no hard feelings. This is really how it works, because this person might have other plans. Be proactive and ask questions. Like if you don't know anything, just ask questions, and Dutch will be happy to answer you. Because like in Ukraine, we used to show politeness and respect to other people, and we don't want to bother. And we think, if I ask, maybe, that person has different plans, whatever. No, ask the questions. Dutch people will be very happy to tell you what to do, or how to behave in this situation. Then also practical thing about the birthdays. If you are invited somewhere, like to a Dutch house, they often mention the time slot when they invite you. For instance, from 2 to 5 p.m. And it often means that you will get no food. Why is that? Is because the Dutch have strict times for the meals, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And lunch is usually somewhere between 12:30 until 1:30 p.m. And evenings are dinners are quite early. It can start as early as 5:30 p.m. and until 7 p.m., something like that. So if you see in the invitation that's from 2 to 5, it is just after lunch and before the dinner. So don't come hungry. You will get no food. You will get drinks, but maybe some snacks, but no food. And also what's different with Ukrainians, like when you visit a house, you usually ask, what would you like to drink? So if you're hosting someone, always ask, what would you like to drink, instead of offering lots of food, which is very Ukrainian culture. Also very practical thing, it is a communication. Dutch are very open and direct in their communications. So when you just walk outside, when you see people, the conversation can start really easily. Everyone is extremely friendly and smiling, and the Dutch people is just a ball of joy and energy. They're all talking about everything. And it's important to know that the conversations are simple. You might not come ever to discuss some really philosophical things or something really high-end topics. So keep it to simple topics like the weather, your holidays. So you can even prepare a list of questions that you can ask Dutch people, and also the topics that you can bring up as a discussion. I usually talk about the holidays, the weather, the transport. Oh, and Dutch complain a lot. So if you complain, oh, those trains are late or whatever, then you will think, oh, she's one of a kind. So communication is the key. Just keep communicating, be open. Like Ukrainians also often say, maybe, I don't know. I would, if I may give an advice, I would say, I will think about it. Would probably land better than maybe, or not saying anything, or asking a question like, is it important to cover it now, or can I think about it and come back with it later? Yeah, but Dutch are really open. That's really important. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's also something important to note is the difference between the cities and when you go slightly more rural, and the different cities. So for instance, Rotterdam is go, go, go. Amsterdam is, just chill out. It's going to be okay. All right. And Utrecht is sort of where what we jokingly say is where the farmers live. Actually, there's a big student community there as well. But Utrecht is, I think, a little bit more open in some ways, which is also lovely. So you mentioned something about topics to discuss. If you like coffee, this is the country for you. All right. They rate shops on or cafes on coffee. And there's national write-ups in the newspapers on who made best coffee this year next to the highway, or as a restaurant, or as a cafe. And the other one is fries, like chips, like French fries. They rate restaurants and cafes on that. So coffee is also an important signaling method. So when you're at the end of dinner, they will give you a cup of coffee as an offer. And then when you offer you the second cup of coffee, it means go. All right. It doesn't mean, yes, I'd like another biscuit, another cup of coffee. It just means go. Pack up your stuff. The social element is finished now. They're polite enough not to tell you that. But if you do not take the hint, if you say, can I have a second cup of coffee? They will give it to you and then tell you things like, we actually have plans, or the kids got to go to bed. You know, they won't tell you directly, but it's very unsubtle. They'll be very poignant about this. Bringing people home. In South Africa, I was used to go out with 3 friends, come back with 21. You know, call mum last minute, 6 o'clock in the morning, saying, can I have some friends over for breakfast? And mum will make breakfast for all of us. In the Netherlands, it's never going to happen. Don't even think about it. It's a case of you will meet 20 times outside of the house for a cup of coffee before you're invited in, especially in the cities. But once you're in, you're a friend for life. All right. So that's just something I wanted to add there about coffee. Sorry, Stacey, for interrupting you.
No, thank you very much for adding this. I was pretty much finished, and I just want to summarize that knowing all this, that Dutch are very practical, very pragmatic. They like to plan everything long term. Or I'll give one more example. Like when you think about the proposal, yeah, when one partner proposes another to get married, and then usually when you think about traditional couple, when a guy is standing on the knee and first taking his girlfriend to a nice place, makes a surprise, and then he stands on the knee, and then he takes out the ring and says, hey, would you marry me? And she's like, oh my goodness, I didn't expect that. She's surprised. And she says, yes. And you won't see it in the Netherlands. So if anyone of the couple proposes, it means that they have planned it and discussed it well beforehand. Usually they live like 2 or 3, they date 2 or 3 years before they start living together, because living together is the next step, and it means often giving up your previous house. So you have to really change drastically your life. You have to change all the finances, etc. So you don't do it with anyone you don't know well enough. So after you're dating for like 2, 3, or 4 years, then you might start living together, and then you live 2, 3, 4, 5 years together before you start thinking about making really a family together. So yeah, they're really very restrained and accurate and planning everything, and everything goes with the agreement. So knowing all this, the fact that Dutch people open thousands of homes for Ukrainian displaced people, it is just a mind-blowing, and it is such a huge act of kindness and understanding. And I want to thank all Dutch people who are looking at us for this. It's really incredible. And I think it's important to remember it. And whenever the cultural clashes come in, when Ukrainians living with a Dutch family and think, we don't do it like this, or they might look greedy, or they don't like to put the temperature a bit warmer as I'm freezing. It's not about this. Just remember what Dutch people are doing is just a huge gesture. And yeah. They're kind and nice people. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that, Stacey. The one thing is that it's something that might just be interesting to know. In psychology, one of the best exercises we can do to elevate our mood is something called a gratitude exercise. So expressing gratitude about how I feel about my own life and about myself, but also about other people. So if you're living with someone, a nice practical tip is express gratitude. Make it specific. Say, I thank you so much for that cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be a big thing, all right? But by saying thank you, it helps people feel like whatever effort they put in, no matter how small, is valued and seen. And I think that goes both directions. But it's just a nice practical way of looking at it. What we've also seen is some questions in the chat group, or in the chats, and I want to quickly just address some of those. One of the things has to do with language. Learning Dutch language is great. Okay, it'll get you into places normally you wouldn't be able to get into, but it's not a prerequisite to come here. Of all the countries in the whole of the European Union, 92% of the Netherlands speaks Dutch as English as either a first language or a second language. In Ukraine, that's 18%. So if you can speak English and you're in Ukraine, all right, the Netherlands is probably going to be a good match for you better mostly than most other European countries that tend to speak their national language a lot more. That doesn't mean the Dutch are not proud of their language. That doesn't mean they prefer to speak it. And it doesn't mean they want you not to learn their language, but they can help you in English. And most people will be able to do that. So ask your questions and always remember, ask, ask, ask. All right. Then there's some questions about children and kindergartens and things like that. The biggest problem, I think, with the Netherlands is that because it's a small country, there's not a lot of space. So no matter where you go, it doesn't matter if it's rural or in the cities, there's always going to be a space problem. That means housing prices are high. That means it's packed. People are living close to each other. But that also means getting into a kindergarten is going to be more difficult. So even in the cities, it's worse because obviously there's more density. And with COVID, a lot of those services fell apart or didn't function as well, and it's slowly starting up again. There's also subsidies for that, and there's some new laws and rules going into place. Ask the people around you, ask the area that you're going to be going to, what are the rules locally, what are the availability locally, because it differs even from one suburb to the other in the Netherlands. So it's not just something they can say it's always the same in cities or it's always the same in rural areas. Stacey, is there something you guys like to add? Yeah, or Kosti, go for it.
Yeah. I wanted to make one addition here. All right, so one thing to know is there is a huge difference about cities and rural areas in Ukraine and in the Netherlands. Basically, in Ukraine, if you go more than 5-10 kilometers outside of the city, it's really rural, and there are the life there is totally different, and schools are totally different, kindergartens are totally different. So probably this is why people are asking these questions. But there will be differences in the Netherlands as well, but I'm sure the differences will not be so big like in Ukraine. Kindergarten schools are good; they are everywhere. So that's as much as I can say. Being not a Dutch person, but I'm sure it's not a big issue for sure.
I think the quality of education is countrywide very similar. They all have the same standards. If you have a language only school, like or a religious only school, those are held to the same standard and must meet the same criteria everywhere. It doesn't matter if they're in rural areas or if they're in the cities. So the same thing with universities, expectations are quite high. One of the questions that has come up has to do with accommodation. Now, because we believe accommodation is a really important topic, we're going to dedicate a whole session just to accommodation. So on the 19th, just check in the Coaches4Ukraine group. On the 19th, we have a session. It's an open session. We already have, I think, Kostya, how many? 30, 40 people that are going to be participating there. So it's going to be a really lively discussion. But that section is specifically dedicated just to accommodation, everything from what is available in social housing, what is available in rental properties and purchasing properties. And we'll talk about that, which also has to do with a little bit of financial planning that's attached to that. And I'll also highlight things like what is the part of your disposable income that is going towards house, and what is included in rent and what's not. So, but that's what we're going to discuss next week, Tuesday. It's not going to be part of a discussion for today. It was just a question about that. Kostya, what would you like to add? What was the other stuff that we thought might be important to people?
I think we are finishing the time plan for this event. So we were thinking to highlight at the end of the event some things which today we spoke a lot about Dutch culture, but we wanted to highlight some things which are very common for Ukrainian culture, which may be not so common in Dutch culture. And I may start, and then for sure Stacey will have more things to add. So one thing is being positive and smile. Generally speaking, it's not so common in Ukraine to just be positive and smile with people that you don't know straight away. It's getting better, but it was getting better. But now we have also this terrible war, and of course people are not in a situation to be very happy. However, still it's important people that are in the Netherlands to try to smile and be positive with people that they meet, and everyone will appreciate that. So we spoke about food. There was a good question about living in the cities or in rural areas. In Ukraine, it's two different lives. In the Netherlands, it's not much of a difference. Possibly even better life in rural areas if you like it. Okay, Stacy, would you like to add something to that? Help me.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so there are, I think, the core things that are important to know about the Ukrainians and Ukrainian culture is that it is a very giving culture. And and it is also built around food. So it is food culture. So when you somehow cooperate with a Ukrainian, just make sure that they would like to take care of you, and they will do it with the help of food. So for instance, if in Ukraine you visit someone at home, no matter what time of the day or night it is, first thing you will be asked, are you hungry? And if not, you say no, they will say, are you sure? And you say again, no. Well, but I have pancakes left from breakfast. No, thank you, no. And a soup? Also not. So they will keep asking and insisting, because firstly, it's because food is really important, and Ukrainians put a lot of effort into cooking many dishes. It's not like here, one warm dish per day. In Ukraine, it's often three warm meals per day, and there should be a variety. And it's food is important itself, but it's also a form of showing respect, love, and care about this person. So refusing food, it's also refusing the care and all the best that the Ukrainians have to give you. Of course, it doesn't mean that we have to eat every time we don't want to eat. And I personally, I refuse food. If I'm not hungry, I refuse it. But I know how much it means to people who offer it to me. And I say, I really appreciate you take care of me. I know you want the best, but I'm really not hungry. Thank you. Once I'm hungry, I will be more than happy to let you take care of me. The second and is important thing to know that Ukrainian lives way more in post-patriarchal system than the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, there's the gender equality is more present than in Ukraine. So for instance, in Ukraine, women are used to do a lot at home, way more than men. I'm not saying it's everywhere, but it's more often. So it might be the case that once you're like, if you host a Ukrainian family, and usually these are women because men have to stay in the country, so only women and children fled. So it could be the case that I don't know, the husband, the host, the male host comes home and he's not allowed to wash dishes, or he's not allowed to cook or clean. This comes from this post-patriarchal culture of Ukraine. And also what is important to know that Ukrainians are very in touch with their heart and soul and a more emotional part, and this is on the other side from Dutch. Dutch are very pragmatic, and Ukrainians are very emotional. They're very empathic. They feel other people. They feel the emotions. They want to help. They want to give, but it also can be expressed openly. These emotions can be expressed. So, like what is typical for Holland is to discuss any even most difficult, most embarrassing problem that will be discussed here. And in Ukraine, people might sit together, cry, maybe drink a glass of wine, hug, say they love you, and then it's all. So the way they express it, the emotions, it's very different. Yeah, so these were 3 points.
I think that's a very good point you're making there, Stacey, because it is when you're saying things like, this is how I feel, in the Netherlands, it's going to be really weird. Okay, they're going to look at it very weirdly. But if you're saying, I'm upset and this is how we're going to solve it, they'll be okay with it. So they always look, it's sort of like, I think it's a male or female approach that most people call it. Ask me how I feel or ask me what I can do about it. And the Netherlands, they'll probably tell you what you can do about it. Right. So it's just something to know. But I think the connection around food is a really interesting one. If somebody says thank you or I love you by cooking for you and they spend lots of time on it, they're also going to be invested in that time and they're going to express it in time. And if you reject that, it's always going to hurt. So maybe an idea could be for people to cook together and say, how can we learn from each other's cultures through food? And I think that's a very interesting thing, because in the Netherlands, we also have Indonesian food because of colonial past, but Indonesian food is different. It's different from traditional Dutch food, and it's different from traditional Ukrainian food, but it's something that people might be able to share and express. So another little thing that I want to just quickly highlight, and that is our next upcoming sessions and how you can get a hold of us. If you want to ask us any questions, please do link with us on LinkedIn, because we're on LinkedIn, because we normally focus on the business side of things. I think it might be interesting for you as well as listeners. So here, let me just quickly swap over to the slides. And our next session is coming Tuesday, the 19th, where we specifically talk about housing. So it's going to be about everything that is general about European housing. I've prepared some interesting slides for that, and also what kind of housing is available and not available in the Netherlands, and how hard is it to get access to it, and where do you go to get access to it. One of the things, we'll share a website that you can find just about 80% or 90% of all Dutch housing on. That's available. We're also going to do a session, which we haven't got the date on yet, that's going to talk about things like living in someone's house, but it's also going to be talking about the emotional side of it. So we'll talk about, that session will probably be in Ukrainian or in Russian language by Ukrainians. And it will include a psychologist or two, coach or two, specifically dedicated to how do we deal with conflicts, how do we resolve conflicts, language barriers, things like that. And Kostya will be organizing that for us, which is hat off to you, Kostya. Thank you for that. So one more thing that I think is interesting for you is here are the QR codes. If you take your phone and you scan that QR code, it'll take you through to, and I see Stacey's picture is not on there. Oh, Stacey, I messed up. I've got mine on there twice. I will have to see what's going on there in the background. We'll make sure that we get yours. Just give me 1 second. Maybe, Stacey, you can tell everybody how you feel now that I've left that out. And I will quickly fix that in the slide deck.
2 extents is better than 1, right?
And I hope it's not Green Pass, the COVID certificate code. Anyway.
Oh, right. No, that's totally fine. Thank you for noticing it, and I'm sure we will fix it right away. Thank you.
It is fixed, and let's go back to that slide. There we are. I think it'll show up now. Let me just quickly see. There we are. Yes, there we go. And it is up. And let me replace the spotlight for that. There we are. So that's also Stacey's over there. So Kostya's on the left and I'm in the middle and Stacey's on the right. And scan that with the QR code scanner on your phone or just with your camera. And that should lead you through to the LinkedIn profiles where you can link with us. And also remember, we have Coaches4Ukraine. So that's coaches and then the letter 4 or the number 4 and then Ukraine. Search for that on Facebook or just go to Facebook.com/groups/Coaches4Ukraine and you'll find us there. Join the groups and get chatting and tell us what you need and what kind of information we can help you with or where we can direct you. And with that, I would like to say thank you to my guests today. Thank you, Kostya. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you very much, Extin, and thanks to Stacey. I hope many people will watch our webinar in recording as well. And yeah, off to the next ones.
Thank you very much. And I really hope that, Dutch and Ukrainian can take really the best out of the cultures and can bring the best out of themselves. I think that both Dutch and Ukrainian are really brilliant and genuine and great people. Thank you for inviting.
And big thanks to all the Netherlands and Dutch people for helping out Ukraine. It's really appreciated on behalf of all my fellow Ukrainians.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I would just like to say thank you again, Kostya, for your time, and Stacey for your time and being willing to be here today on what I know is some of your spare time and maybe even some of your business time that you sacrificed for us today. Thanks for helping out. And with that, we'll be signing off, and have a lovely long Easter weekend, and see you